Brian, it's that time again. I want to go down in history. I want it on my tombstone. He called 2026. 2026. I watched Steve Mark Ryan yesterday. He was talking about that he's always said, that full self-driving will be out in 2025 or what, or, pretty close around 2025 that he's been, and I agree with him. He has, and I think he's going to turn out to be really right on that. But I've been saying that 2026 is the year when it all comes together. That's my claim. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Are you ready? Are you ready?
You guys still believe in 2026? I think that year's a myth. We're going to skip it.
All right, so let's talk. So here we go. A Cybertruck is a big deal, and we all expect it to be, I think you expect it to be at least 750,000 to $1 million a year, maybe more, becoming the #1 best selling truck of all time. Maybe you don't. You can tell me you don't. But it is going to take us until 2026 to find out. So 2025, maybe we make 250,000 of them, 350,000 of them, and then by 2026, if it is going to be the #1 selling truck of all year, of all time, we will have gone through a lot of the folks that weren't serious on the list. We will find out who is and who isn't serious. We'll find out what other trucks are doing. We'll find, so much will happen, but by 2026, I think there's a 95% chance that we will know whether Cybertruck is going to be a 250,000 a year forever, or it's going to be $1 million and climbing. What do you think?
I think 2026 is a very safe guess. Yes. I think we'll continue ramping through 24. I think we'll continue ramping through 25. And I think we'll see some subtle changes that may improve cost or practicality or something like that. We may see a back window that slides open because people want their climate control when camping. Who knows? But I think that we will definitely know the real numbers by 2026. And it has the potential to be the cheaper option. I've already interviewed contractors who are using Ford electric vans for their daily use because they're saving $500 a month in gas, and they just come back to the shop and plug in each night. He goes, I don't drive more than 100 miles a day. All my jobs are within 20, 30, 40 miles. And so for me, it's just saved so much money. And he was able to get it. He actually got it for 50 grand with the 7,500, making it 42,500. And he's saving 500. So after 8 years, it'll be a free truck. So a free van. Right. The trucks are only going to get cheaper and better. And at some point, gas will be novel. They will still sell diesel pullers for fifth wheels and whatnot. Because they need to have 40 gallons of gas that they can refill every 2 hours while hauling those beasts around. But for 90% of pickup applications, so could it be the best selling? Absolutely. If you'd have told me that Model 3 would be the best selling sedan in the US, I'd have thought that was very unlikely because it's just too expensive. Turns out it isn't. If you'd have told me the Model Y was going to be the best-selling car in the world, not EV, car in the world, I would have said, well, that's a bit aspirational. So while I have my reservations about Cybertruck becoming the best-selling truck in the world, this is an area precisely where my caution has been unwarranted in the past. So I suspect you could be right. 2026, lock it in.
All right, let's talk then about the next gen vehicle, not necessarily the Robotaxi version of it, but the next gen vehicle. We know that we're supposed to have the 2.5 or whatever it's going to be here in the fall or the winter or maybe the early of next year. And in the meantime, they're going to finish with the unboxed, whatever that's going to look like. And so sometime in 2025, we should actually see the 3.0. The actual version. Maybe it's just an announcement, but something like that. And then if everything's going well, I would think maybe Mexico breaks ground and we start working towards actually having that massive plant in Mexico to build these compact cars and other things that go on that platform, maybe a van, maybe a small truck, the kinds of things we've talked about. So by 2026, all of that should be known. The ground is broken or the walls are up or we're actually producing, but the Gen 3 should be a clear-cut, understandable. The street will understand it, we'll understand it in terms of the Gen 3 platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only unknown there isn't within Tesla's control. It's what everyone else will be doing. And what we've seen time and again is everything Tesla does is a step ahead. And it's just like the changes that iPhone makes, it is often mocked at the time. Oh, you're getting rid of cords. Oh, you're getting rid of the wall slug. Uh, Great. You know what? Actually, never mind. We're going to do that too. So whether it was the battery packs in the floor, Tesla was the first to do that. Now, of course, you can't imagine them anywhere else. Structural battery packs, we're seeing people starting to do that. Gigacastings, there are dozens of these machines being set up around the world for every manufacturer. And yet you still get clowns like Reuters saying, nope, gigacastings are done.
Yeah, right.
Shush your Reuters mouths. Shush them. So they're whatever Robotaxi is, and I'm very curious to know what it is. I hope we find out on the 8th of August. I'm confident that everyone will do their best to jump in that direction, because whatever the benefits are will be plain as day by August.
All right, we want to come back around to Robotaxi in a minute because I want to finish with that and Optimus. But let's go on to energy. We have the second energy factory being built. I'm gonna say that process, all the things that they need to know about making megafactories and making megapacks, that is going to be so completely like just cookie cutter stuff by mid 2025, maybe even early 2025, that we will finally start getting announcements of other locations where they're going to start plugging these babies in, so to speak. So that we will know that there will be, one in Germany. I mean, one in Germany or one in I'm sorry, one in Australia, wherever they're going to go. We'll start to see some real units of factories being built. And in 2026, that will be just, again, super clear.
Absolutely. You're right that Lathrop is most of the way through their ramp, if not fully ramped. That the megafactory in Shanghai, we've heard the groundbreaking announcement, and it is just down the street from the CATL factory. CATL has their new LFP, which is warranted for 15 years. I assume those packs are what's going to go into it. And people have said, well, the competition is coming in stationary storage. No, the competition is here. There is competition. It's just that the addressable market, you don't have to be big fish in a small pond or a big pond. This is the ocean we're talking about, and that's how big the addressable market is. And CATL isn't a competitor as much as a cooperative partner. Do they care if they're selling the cells to Tesla versus the consumer if they're making the same amount of money either way? You could argue, well, they'd make more money if they sold direct. Yes, that's where Tesla's software advantage comes in. And while I'm sure CATL's software will catch up at some point, as always, Tesla's always one step ahead. And even if CATL was exactly as good, the addressable market is quasi infinite at this point, and it would be surprising to me if we don't see one or two more megafactories opening around the world as quickly as high quality cells to provide for them is available.
All right, so then we've got the semi-truck. Crying and crying over my semi-truck, but it looks like we've just started shipping to Walmart apparently. Pepsi's maybe very happy at this point. I'm just going to guess they are. And they're starting to build a few more of these now. And we're theoretically going to have a building in Reno sometime soon. But Elon has said he's changed his dates to the end of 2025. So I'm going to say there's a 70% chance that in 2026, we will be fully engaged in the ramp of the semi-truck. And you say?
I say that's reasonable. The problem I've had, and I get people leaving comments who misunderstand this, so I'm going to try and be clear on it. One reason to delay the ramp of the semi is because it uses 2170 cells. Those come from next door at Giga Nevada. Every semi that is built means 7 to 10 cars that can't be sold using the same Giga Nevada batteries. Those batteries are essential if you want to get the $7,500 federal rebate. Yes, you can make those cars with 4680s, but there's not enough of them to exceed what the Cybertruck demand is. Yes, you can make them with Chinese cells. Those only qualify if you're doing a lease and not a purchase. So losing 10 cars worth of federal incentive is 75 grand. That is too much money on the table. And I believe that that has been the bottleneck. If Panasonic is increasing 2170 production, that would leave an opportunity there. If Tesla is able to get their LFP production running, they have bought LFP equipment from CATL. I suspect that'll take about a year or two to get running. That would coincide with your 2026 timeline about perfectly. And then those are good cells. Those would make a fine standard range vehicle or even medium range vehicle at an affordable price using locally sourced elements that would all qualify for the credits. So all of those pieces appear to be falling into place.
All right, so now let's talk about the big two, because as we know, you can take all the rest of those product lines, including the Model 3, Model Y, Model S, all the SEXY, take all of that, take everything that we just talked about, and Robotaxi, when it happens, will dwarf all of the profits for all those other companies combined, or those divisions combined. So I believe that there is a 98% chance that Robotaxis, both the fleet, the Tesla's own fleet, the new Robotaxi version, the Robotaxi planned
Vehicle.
and also the Robotaxis that you and I own that we can put into service if we choose to, all of that will be 100% operational. I think there's way over 95% chance that that's going to happen by 2026. And
it doesn't, if you've seen the step changes from version 11 to version 12, it's easy to see the path to level 4, level 5. There are still some glaring gaps, like not recognizing emergency lights, like not pulling into your own driveway, things like that. But those seem trivial compared to a lot of the other issues. So the idea that we could have a robotaxi, not just as a vehicle, but as a concept by 2026 is reasonable to me. Now, you were saying that robotaxi, and I get you, but let me explain what I think you're saying, because this is a big misunderstanding out there, is that robotaxi is a philosophy, but it's also a vehicle, it's also a program, and it's also your vehicles. So even though these are all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, they're all still the same thing. It's still different versions of the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. So there will be an app. The app will, you'll call either a Tesla vehicle that's owned by Tesla, you'll call a vehicle that's owned by Brian White, or you'll call a vehicle that is owned by Hertz or who knows who. It'll all be part of the same system, and Tesla will get a rake at various levels of rake, depending on which of those it is, but all of it will be extremely profitable.
And all tied together into one ecosystem that just makes sense. And it does make sense. I've seen people say, no, Tesla they'll stop selling vehicles and only keep their own. They don't have enough money to do that. They would have to do that gradually over time. It would make sense to bring in partners. And when I mean partners, I mean, yes, Hertz, yes, Turo, yes, Randy, Brian, people like the Kilowatts who own a lot of vehicles, people like Bear who owns a lot of vehicles, who would just say, good night, I'm going to bed, bring me back my money, and just let it happen. In order to do that, though, they're going to need service stations where someone or something cleans the cars, inspects them, maintains them. And that would be, that's a normal thing you would need, regardless of who's owning something.
Right.
And if I can say, well, I don't want to deal with the cleaning and the, upholstery repair, I'll just pay the extra 10% per fare and let them handle it or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And this opens up a big world. I've seen people saying, oh, they should buy Uber. Nah, those guys are garbage. They're garbage. They're so bad at what they do. And I believe that just to my core. I've seen too much of how Uber operates internationally. A lot of tourist places, Uber is just access to suckers where the drivers are criminals who will take advantage of you and not even use the app. The app is just how they get your phone number so they can take you off platform and charge you 10 times more than the agreed upon fare.
Nice.
Uh, and somehow Uber doesn't notice that every day thousands of people request a ride from one location and zero get picked up.
Oh, wow.
So that is a gap that is a mile wide. And if your analytics aren't catching that, you don't deserve to be in business.
All right. So then, according to Elon, you could take all of the companies that we just discussed, including robotaxis, add it all together, which will be a monumentally huge company. And then you add the Optimus on top of it, it makes all the rest look small. So I watched the video the other day, the new video that's out, just confirming everything that we believe. Elon has said that they would be working in the factory later this year. That video and the accompanying text, commentary in X from one of the engineers at the Optimus division said, no, we've got a couple of Optimus robots working now in the factory. And Elon said they'll start shipping to third parties next year. So by 2026, I'm saying we are ramping into, finally, Randy's optimism will start to come true. We'll be ramping into the, if not tens, probably hundreds of thousands of units.
And what's beautiful about the bot, and I'm sure Business Insider will come out with an article saying, oh, yeah, well, our inside sources said they mostly stand around the water cooler and talk all day. Great. Good job. I'm proud of you guys. You found a way to be negative. The beauty of the bots is if you need to do layoffs, you've got too many bots, Randy, you can reassign them, you can rent them out, or you can mothball them. Put them in storage. They store neatly. They consume very little cubic space. And you could just literally have a warehouse on standby so that, oh, you know what? We need to build a new field of solar panels, load 100 on a truck, and out they go. Oh, and by the way, the truck drives itself. So let's talk about, may I briefly indulge me with the insanity of how this becomes cheap? Because people are saying if there's no work, how will people survive? And the answer is an actual age of abundance. So I need somewhere to live. I'm a college graduate. I have no job. I have no I'm a high school, whatever I am. Well, so we need to build an apartment building. Well, who's going to pay for the building? Well, there's bots building it, so eliminate that cost. Well, right, but you still need materials. Yes, but who's doing the logging? Who's doing the mining? Who's doing the refining? It could all be bots. It could be bots from the ground to the finished product, where the only cost is whatever you paid for the land. And I'd hasten to point out that the government owns a fair bit of land. They could make available land for these free buildings to be built. Well, right, but they got to drive there. Who's going to pay for the electricity? Solar. Solar that was built by robots using materials mined by robots. Now, this vision could be 100 years out, but it could be 15 years out.
It's all possible. So 2026.
I would point out real quick, though, it couldn't be 15 years out because you got to get a permit and they're closed on Tuesdays.
Oh, that's right. That is a problem. So 2026 is the year that it all comes together. Randy has been saying this now for a year, maybe a little more than a year. 2026 is the time. The markets will probably figure this out either at the end of this year or sometime next year. So for those of you who don't want to take advice from Randy, and by the way, I give no financial advice at all. This is strictly life lesson advice. This is just, do your own research, do your own homework. The time to invest in Tesla is now. This is called arbitrage. When you know something that the street doesn't know, that's the best arbitrage you could ever have. And this is the time, because the street is going to start figuring this out within the next 6 to 9 months.
What I would say is when I decided to invest in Tesla, it was not because Rob Maurer gave me financial advice. Rob Maurer was giving me information every day. I was listening to it, I was consuming it, and it was based on my interpretation of that. We are not the rain, we are the cloud.
There you go.
What you can seed that cloud at any time, and you have to decide when it makes sense. So that is, yeah, it is not financial advice, and there are people who despise us who like to pretend otherwise. But I will point
Yes.
out that the people, the negative Tesla people, the ultra bears, are giving you financial advice, and it has historically been deeply,
Not
deeply
that
wrong.
great.
You could sue them if they were real and used real names, which is one reason they won't. And there's undisclosed conflicts of interest they're also not sharing because they're bad people. And yeah, we've got to get that figured out. I would say that you are correct, Randy. At some point, Wall Street will understand this. Accept this one. Just soak it in because it ain't happening again. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'd say you're right. Wall Street will wake up to this just like they woke up to Megapack.
Right.
Question is when. And I think you're saying it could be later this year. I think we will see a handful of those. Adam Jonas is already starting to count some of these possibilities.
Right.
And then I love that you said, or next year, which could be all the way up to the second before 2026 starts. And there will be those who don't even get it in
That's
2026
right. That's right.
because it is not a binary thing. These analysts exist on a spectrum, and I
Yes.
think half of them are on the spectrum.
For better. Are you still allowed to say? Never mind. Okay. So Brian, thank you so much again for coming on. And this it was an unusual show where we agreed on almost everything. I mean, this is too, maybe they'll stop watching us if we agree all the time. I'm not sure. Brian, thanks again. And to all of you out there, it has been great talking to you all.